Hello, everybody. You're listening to Fireside Paranormal Podcast. My name is Jordan Cline, and I have a fun show planned for you tonight. My guest tonight was named America's Greatest Mind Reader. His name is Joe Diamond. He's got something fun planned for the end of the show. It involves you. Okay, so go now. Go get 10 cards, any kind of cards. They could be index cards. They could be Uno cards, playing cards, just some kind of card. Go grab them. You need 10. And just as a little spoiler, it's going to be fun. It's at the end of the show. So don't forget it. I want to start with just a few announcements, okay? My friends over at Wicked Cat Clothing, spooky season doesn't last just a month. Shop Wicked Cat Clothing year-round to get your horror, paranormal, spooky, and Halloween apparel. Go to wickedcatclothing.com. Shop apparel and accessories now and save 30% off with the code FIRESIDE30. We also have an event coming up just in 2 weeks. It is the Wonders Oddities Expo and the Tri-State Exotic Animal Expo. They are going to be joining forces for a huge 2-day event, March 26th and 27th, at the West Virginia State Penitentiary in Moundsville. Admission to that is $10. Kids 12 and under are free. Tickets are available at the door. This is going to be a fun event. So if you want to come hang out with me, I'd love to see you, and I will be there on Saturday. We're also trying out this new partnership with Newsly. Newsly is an audio app for iOS and Android. It picks up web articles about the most trending topics on the web at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice. For the first time in the history of the internet, the entire web becomes listenable. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. Stop scrolling, start listening. You can follow any topic as specific as you'd like, from sports, science, to Bitcoin, or even the Kardashians. It'll find you the latest articles and read them to you aloud. They also have podcasts, so explore trending podcasts from over 50 countries. My show, Fireside Paranormal Podcast, is there too. Download and use Newsly for free now from www.newsly.me or from the link in the description, and use promo code FIRESIDE, where the eyes are ones. I'll also put that in the description, and you receive 1 month free premium subscriptions. Let's get into our featured story. Our featured story this week comes in from Elisa.
My name is Elisa, and I'm from Salem, West Virginia. The one story I'm thinking of off the top of my head, a friend that I grew up with, one of his good friends from school, bought a house in Morgantown, West Virginia. We went to go see the house when they bought it. We're walking around. It was a small house, but an old house, tall, skinny kind of thing. So I walked in. I've always gotten feelings. So I went in the house, and through the front door was a foyer, and then there were stairs that went upstairs. I had a weird feeling going upstairs, like kind of a heaviness. But I went upstairs fine. I came back downstairs and went through the foyer to the hallway and into the kitchen. And in the kitchen, there was a doorway to my left that went down to the basement. My friend had gone down to the basement already. And he's like, Elisa, come down. I couldn't. I got to the doorway, and that's as far as I could go. It felt like there was a wall in front of me. And they didn't tell me that day, but afterwards, they said that the young gentleman that owned the house before had been out partying. Morgantown's a college town. He came home, was really drunk, came in through the basement door, and he had fallen down the basement steps and died in the basement on the floor. So I never did go in the basement. It was a weird feeling, though. It was like a pressure, like there was a wall there, but I couldn't see anything.
Thank you so much, Elisa. If you would like to have your story as one of our featured stories, don't forget to email me at firesideparanormalpodcast@gmail.com. You can either record it yourself and send it in, or you can type it out and we can read it for you. But I want to thank everybody so far that's been a part of the featured stories. We've been getting a lot of really good feedback with it, and really appreciate you guys opening up. Also, if you're an investigation team and you want to talk about some of your experiences on investigations, I'm trying to put something together for that, so definitely reach out to me. Again, Fireside Paranormal Podcast at gmail.com. All right, I want to get to my guests, so join me by the fire as we welcome Joe Diamond. He's been hailed by coast to coast as America's greatest mind reader. In fact, he's even a world record holder for solving the world's largest corn maze blindfolded. His TV appearances include ABC7, WGN, The Today Show, The Movie Channel, Netflix, even Showtime. Welcome to the show, Joe Diamond. Are you here, sir?
I am here. I'm here by the fire. Thanks so much. Thanks for that wonderful intro. I appreciate that. I love just, we were talking a little bit beforehand and, I sent that over and you just dove right into it. This is great. I'm excited.
Hey, I am pumped for the show. Like, you have no clue. Like, I've told you before, many years ago, I hosted a show called Whispers Radio, and we had a mentalist come into the studio, and the things that he was able to do blew my mind. I mean, it was awesome. Really, really fun. It was a lot of fun. Lola, who was our producer at the time, I don't want to say she was the butt of any jokes, but she played really well with everything going on. Like he was able to read her mail frontwards, backwards, in every way. So it was a blast.
Perfect.
So I'm really pumped about this.
Well, thank you. I'm pumped to be here.
All right. So you got to tell me how did this all start? Like, again, you're such a different guest than what I'm used to, so I can't be like, well,
fair enough.
Well, how did you fall into the paranormal? How did you know that you could read people's minds and make them bark like dogs and things like that?
It's a lot of different things. Yeah, it's a strange story too, even for people in in this line of work. It's a bit different than the usual story. First things first, I was a weird kid growing up. I was born in the late 1980s. We'll just leave it at that. I'm getting to the point where I look horrible for my 20s, but I look pretty good for my 40s. So we'll leave it at that. But at the time, all the things I was into weren't the norm. Like, for example, I was a Ghostbuster for Halloween, but this was like early 90s, like a good decade after like the height of Ghostbusters and the cartoons and everything. I watched Nick at Night, which meant I watched The Twilight Zone and Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and I'm like 7. I'm a kid in the 90s watching this stuff.
That's awesome.
And I read books at the library on everything from UFOs and crop circles to magic to fortune telling and other metaphysical topics. And the great thing about those books is they have a lot of long words. So by the time I got to 2nd grade, I had a 12th grade reading level, which sounds impressive, Jordan, but I still have a 12th grade reading level. So I peaked early.
As long as you know your limits.
Yeah, exactly. As long as I know it. As long as I know my limits. And my great-grandmother read tarot cards. My grandfather showed me a card trick, and I got books from the library. And it all kind of came together when I was around 17, when I was hired to do street performing at Six Flags Great America, which is a theme park just north of the Chicagoland area. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I think they were looking for more of like a traditional street magician, but I would go out and like read palms all afternoon. Or I actually learned from some sideshow friends of mine. I learned how to hammer a nail into my nose and stick my hand into an animal trap. They swallowed swords for a living. I never learned that, but I started doing all that kind of stuff that kind of blurred the line between what people thought was real and possible and what wasn't. And I developed, some mentalism mind reading techniques. I also just learned to kind of just trust my intuition with it as well. I started working entertainment for events around the Chicagoland area, different corporate events. And then I did, for 10 years, a theater show on the north side of Chicago called The Magic Cabaret. And Travel Channel ended up picking it up as one of the country's best magic shows.
Oh, wow.
But what was interesting about that show was me and another performer, and he did more traditional magic. He told some stories and then would make a deck of cards disappear or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I would come out and do mind reading, hammer a nail into my nose, and then the last part of the show, I would do stuff like read the mind of an audience member and or memorize a deck of cards in under 20 seconds. So it was funny how, like, we joked at how I didn't do any magic in the show, and the show was called The Magic Cabaret. But that was kind of a fun. But that was kind of fun to kind of play with people's expectations. The first thing I did when I came out and did a solo piece in the show, because it was a 2-person show. We did a couple things together, and I came out. My first solo piece was a stunt called the Human Blockhead, where I hammered a real nail into my nostril. It's not a trick. You can look it up online and see the X-rays of where it goes in the head. It's like sword swallowing. You got to put it in the right way and put it at the right angle, and you'll be able to do it without injuring yourself. And that is not what people were expecting at the time.
I got to ask you real quick. Let me interrupt. Like, is there
sure.
any fear with that of like piercing your brain or anything like that?
No, it's really going more towards the back of the throat. So kind of like when you have milk come out your nose, or when you see like those clips on YouTube or America's Funniest Home Videos where like a baby has pasta coming out of their nose, or something like that. It's more going through that area. Basically, not to get too gross here, but when you go to hawk a loogie, like right where it gets in the back of the throat, kind of at the back of the nostrils, that's where the nail's going. So it's going in a pretty safe place, and I had a really, really good mentor who showed me the right way to do it and how to properly clean the nail and use steel wool on it, because you want to take off any burrs that may be on the nail or little notches that could cut you in your nostril. Also takes all the graphite off, so that doesn't end up, in your sinus cavity. So I learned from like, the way true sideshow is taught, from mentor to student, and they sat down with me for an afternoon. I taught the sideshow workers some 3-card money techniques, and they taught me how to hammer a nail into my skull. So it was, I think, a fair trade.
It was a good trade.
As far as
a good trade.
Yeah. And then after that, I started doing a lot. I was doing my radio show at the time, which was, I talked to everyone from magicians to ghost hunters to sword swallowers, UFO enthusiasts.
Nice.
And I really, like, after like 2012, about 10 years ago, is when I really started delving into, the paranormal side of everything. And I started performing in places, and this didn't happen consciously. It just kind of happened by accident. Like I became an artist partner at this arts park, which is now which has now been around for a couple of decades, but it's in a house that used to belong to one of the Ringling Brothers' wives. And you walk up to this place, and it's a haunted mansion. You look at it and you're like, yeah, this place is haunted. I've also worked at other haunted locations in the Chicago suburb area and the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. And again, it wasn't like a conscious choice, but as I got more into, doing more mind reading events, and there's a lot of people in my industry, like you talked about before, who are wonderful and make a great living on the either like the college market or the corporate market. And I've done colleges and I do corporate events, and I have nothing against them. However, it wasn't a main goal of mine, because I heard all these, it just didn't make sense to me to like not take a corporate job and then do all this work to try to do corporate events, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm still very happy when I get them, and very often when they want to book me, they're contacting me to book me. They don't just want, they don't want a more traditional magician or anything like that. They want someone who's going to come in and freak out their employees and tell them, the name of the first person they had a crush on, or the dream they had last night, or their phone PIN code, that kind of stuff. So I started working like at the Dole Mansion and the Maxwell Mansion, and over the last decade, it's kind of become my niche to be performing in these really cool historic places. And I've been able to kind of not feel like I have to do one thing at any given time. I can do a sideshow stunt and then tell a ghost story, and then, try a mind reading experiment, not feel like I have to just do one of those things in any given situation.
No, okay. So you said one of your things was guessing a phone pin, and without giving away any, like, I guess, tricks of the trade. I don't know the correct term, but how many people out there use the same pen?
So it's that is something I actually talk about now. With when it comes to pin code. So let me tell you this. I actually started guessing PIN codes on a dare.
Uh-huh.
I used to just like always guess people's names, or, you know, sometimes have them think of like a random number. And occasionally, you know, people would challenge me. But I was on the radio once, and I had apparently, while talking with someone at a bar, had taken the challenge to guess their phone PIN, and I got it right. Well, they then text in the next time I was on this radio show saying, this guy guessed my PIN code. And the hosts were like, hey, can you guess my PIN code? And I said, sure. And I did it. And that kind of went viral in the Midwest here. I couldn't go anywhere for several months without someone going, oh, you're the guy on Will Rock who unlocked Emily's phone. And then they would just hand me their phone. So now here's the problem with it. You know, mind reading isn't an exact science. If it was, it would be an exact science. So
right.
There you go. But that's kind of the fun of it. But like, well, for example, I used to have people think of a time, and let's just say the time was like 1:23, 1:23. And if I guessed 1:32, that's wrong, but I'm still close. Like, people are gonna go,
yeah.
oh, you've just got the last two digits screwed up. That's still very good. They would still like give it to me, even though I was wrong. With a code, I would actually take their phone and type in their code, which post-pandemic times, I don't know if I'd want to touch someone else's germy phone now.
Use a stylist.
But, so it's been a while since I've done it. But, you know, that was kind of, if I typed in the right numbers but in the wrong order, that phone wouldn't open. So I had to take that into account. That said, do you have a calculator on your phone, Jordan?
I do.
Okay. Could you open it up? Because I can actually show you a little bit about how this PIN code stuff works.
Okay.
Don't worry, I won't guess your real PIN code on the podcast. You won't have to edit this out or anything like that.
All of the mysteries of the universe that are on my cell phone.
Yes.
You know, it'll go out over the airwaves.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'll tell you this much. The most common 4-digit PIN that people use is actually their birth year. It's the year that they were born as 4 digits. So Jordan, don't tell me the year you were born, but type it into your calculator. So type in, 20 something something or 19 something something.
Oh no, I'm in the same boat as you, brother. I'm in the 1900s.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, fair enough. So that's the only thing I know for sure. Now, if we were in person, really think about this. And this is kind of how you can think about this from a phone hacker's point of view. If you look at someone, you can kind of guesstimate their age within a decade, usually, right? Mm-hmm. And your phone gives you 10 chances before it locks you out completely. So if it's a birth year, it's actually not that secure of a code. So here's what I'll have you do. You've typed in the 4 digits in front of you.
Uh-huh.
Hit plus. And now think of a special year, a year that means something to you. It could be a year like within the last decade. Like you mentioned, you have kids. It could be the year one of your kids were born. It could be the year you met a significant other. It could be the year you tried your favorite food. Just make sure you know how many years ago it was. And think of that year. Don't tell me anything about it.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah.
Now type that in. Add that to your birth year. So now that's a year that would be a much better code because you can't deduce it by just looking at you, right?
Gotcha.
Okay, hit plus again, and just type in your age, and then hit equals. Let me know when you've done that.
Okay.
Okay, so you've got a brand new number in front of you. And again, I couldn't know that because you typed in all details based around you and your life, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's add one more layer to this. If I were doing this, I would have picked 2015 as my special year. That's the year I met my wife. So that was 7 years ago. Yes or no, did you type in 2015 as your special year?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. So think about how many years ago it was since your special year, whether it was 10 years ago, 12 years ago, however many years ago.
Uh-huh.
Got it?
Yep.
Hit plus one more time. and add in that number. And as you do that, keep in mind, if I were doing this, I'd be adding in 0 or I'd be adding in 7, and that would be a completely different number. If I chose the year we were in, if I felt like, 2022 was already a good year, I'd be adding 0. So anyone else would be typing in a different number. So now you have a number in front of you that's akin to a PIN code. It's based totally around details about you and your life, right?
Yes.
All right. So, and just to be clear, this isn't like some weird math thing where it's come out this way. The number you're looking at, the total you're looking at, is not your PIN code, correct?
No, it is not.
Okay. That said, for the next few moments, treat this total like your PIN code. And this way, if I can, I'll try to figure it out the same way I would figure out your PIN code if we were in person. But the other thing too is, like, I can usually just type it into the phone and let only the person see, and then everyone else can see just the last number, and they see whether the phone is open or not. They know I was right without that person's code being exposed. The only way for us to do it in this situation would be for me to say the code I think it is, which is why we do this with a made-up code that, isn't even a code that you could have possibly used in the past.
Yeah, agreed.
So here's how this will work. Jordan, I just need you to count from 1 to 10 for me out loud. Now, here's the one thing, though. When you get to 10, don't say 10, say 0, because I need to hear all 10 digits, basically. And 10 isn't a digit, it's a number. Make sense?
Yeah, do I count fast, slow?
Count slow, and I just want to clarify before we begin. This is a 4-digit code in front of you, yes?
Yes.
Okay, all right. If we got to 5 or 6, that's a little harder for me, but we stayed in 4 digits. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, start counting from 1 to 0, and everyone listening along, listen along with me and see if you can hear anything in Jordan's voice while we do this. Go ahead.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0.
Okay. Okay, you put a little bit of emphasis on a couple of those numbers, but you did great. Tell you what, look at the digits in front of you. Imagine you can mix them up and choose a digit out of the middle. Don't say it. And just think of that one digit. Got it?
Okay.
All right, and then count again for me from 1 to 0, but this time do it while thinking about that digit.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0.
Okay, I believe, if I'm right, I picked up on something on the even numbers. It's an even number, correct?
It is.
I'm going to go for it. I'm going to say that this digit that you thought of randomly is 4.
Yeah.
That is correct? Okay.
That is
all right.
correct.
Just to clarify, too, like, you said you weren't out to, like, buff me or anything before we were recording, but at the same time, you're not lying. You're not lying to make me look good. That is genuinely the number you thought of.
That is the number,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, so I think I can do this with all of the digits then. Think of where it is, because you mixed them up and showed that number at random. Think of where it is in the number, whether it's the first digit, second digit, third digit, or fourth digit.
Okay.
Let me know when you've done that and just say, I got it.
I got it.
Okay, you said got it like you were hesitating a little bit there, which means that's actually good for me. That means you're not sure where to put it, which only tells me that it can go one of several places, which means I think the number is repeated at least once more. It's probably not all the same digit, but I'm going to say the digit repeats at least twice, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right, good. I'll tell you what, think of, so it's something for 4, or 4 something for something, or 4 something something, or 4 something something 4. Think of just the last digit for me. Don't say anything. Don't tell me what it is just yet. Just think of the last digit, and just out loud, could you say for me the words odd and even?
Just say those words?
Yeah, just say those words. Just say odd or even while thinking about the last digit.
Odd or even?
Ooh, okay. I am going to say the last digit is odd, correct?
That is correct.
All right. I'm going to go for it.
Oh,
Again, if these digits are out of order, don't hate me. But I think this code that you made up based solely on your life is 4043.
yeah,
Yes?
yeah, you got it.
Did I get the order right?
Yeah, you got the order right.
Yes. Oh, yes. Awesome. Oh, so cool. Um, also, real quick, let me just say this real quick, in case anyone else wants to like make up. You've got a lot of listeners. Odds are pretty good. At least one of your listeners is also freaking out because they probably picked out a code and made one up that was probably very close as well. So for that person, they're really freaking out too.
Well, hey, if that's you out there, send me an email because we got things to talk about. I also want to clarify because this is pretty neat. You coming on the show, we were only talking about doing like one, maybe two of these kind of, we were talking about like some spooky
stuff. And we do have something planned for the end that we can actually do with the listeners as well.
Yeah.
So we can actually we'll talk a little bit more, but let's just take a second to tell everyone to grab a deck of cards. It can be Uno cards, playing cards, tarot cards, even index cards or business cards. Just make sure you have a pen nearby if you're using blank pieces of card. We'll do something at the end that everyone can follow along with.
All right, so go grab it, y'all.
So one other funny story about these pin codes and everything.
Okay.
So I did this, like I said, I did this with someone's actual pin code on the radio, and the next time they had me on, they replayed the clip, and I had someone make up a code and, similar to what we did here and guessed it over the radio. So I do it different ways. Sometimes I have people just type in random numbers or add up, take 2 digits from an old code and then 2 digits from another code and combine them, that kind of thing. Just to, again, make sure that their real code stays private. Well, the next call we got was from a Washington, D.C. area code. And they're like, "Hi, my name's Susan. I'm calling from the Pentagon." I have a question for the mind reader. Now, Jordan, hand on the Bible, true story. This is when Apple and the FBI were in the news every single day about whether or not to unlock a terrorist cell's iPhone.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. That's
happening, and I get this phone call live on the air. So I want to hedge my bets. I don't want to get taken away by, people in white coats or the mysterious, black vans come along and I'm never seen again. So I'm like, I do have to talk with the person and everything. So I do something with her over the phone, the way I just did it for you. But here's the thing. She was thinking of it in the most secure building on the planet, in the Pentagon.
Right.
So the radio hosts, the rest of the morning after I guess the code she made up, went, "Oh my God, Joe Diamond hacked the Pentagon. Joe Diamond hacked the Pentagon." And all I'm thinking is there's definitely going to be white vans waiting for me when I leave here.
That's all it took right there.
They just keep saying Joe Diamond hacked the Pentagon over and over. Anyways, at the time, as I said, I was doing my own radio show. And in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, when I come in for my show on Sunday, I'm going to pull the audio from this show because this was a great soundbite to have, right? Me, reading the mind of someone over the phone while they're in the Pentagon, like, I'm putting that on my site. I'm putting that everywhere. I come in Sunday evening. I've got my thumb drive. I go into the archives. And that hour of broadcasting was missing from the archives. No one on staff can explain why.
Wow.
So even though I don't have the recording of it, I do have thousands of people who listen to it live as it happened, and I can do it for other people like I just did for you. So
that's pretty cool.
I can back up the story.
That's pretty neat. Hacking the Pentagon.
Yep.
Oh, wait till news gets out.
Yep, exactly.
All right, so getting into the stories and things like that, you said you had family members that were into more of the paranormal stuff as well, right?
Yeah, Yeah, a little bit. My great grandmother read playing cards like tarot. Years later, when I started becoming more known for this, my grandmother, her daughter, started talking about how she used to read tarot cards and has like these intuitive hunches as well over time. No one went into it professionally or anything. It just kind of kind of ran in the family that way. And and it was kind of, I was also an only child growing up. So, when my mom went to visit my grandma, my great grandma, I was the only kid there. So my only choice was to, talk with them. So, when they talked about things like I think it was my great grandmother who showed me like a newspaper clipping of Uri Geller from the 70s. And I think that's when I first heard about him and when I started going to the library and getting books about him.
Yeah. Did you ever learn his tricks? Did you ever learn how to bend a spoon?
I can bend spoons. I actually had the pleasure of talking with Uri Geller for my radio show. We Skyped from his home in Israel to my studio. It was 10 a.m. in the morning, and he said he had actually looked at the TV clip of me bending spoons, and he actually said that I bend spoons better than he did, which was like a huge, huge compliment. I was thrilled to hear him say that. I was like, can I quote that? He's like, yeah, just spell my name right. And I was like, deal. So he said in that interview, I think, or it may have been the pre-interview, it's like, yeah, I don't read the articles anymore. I just make sure they spelled my name right and I measure them. So,
he wants to know how big the name
yeah, he was a really sweet guy, really down to earth. I don't do that radio show anymore, but that interview is up online. If you type into YouTube, Joe Diamond, Uri Geller, it's like a 40-minute interview I have up on YouTube if anyone wants to listen to it. Because we did some long-distance telepathy tests in there, and some, he doesn't call them coincidences, he calls them synchronicities, but some very interesting synchronicities happened during that interview as well, and it was really, really fascinating.
Oh, very cool. I'm guessing that's on your YouTube page, correct?
Yeah, youtube.com/Joe Diamond Live. Quick plug right now, I'm at Joe Diamond Live on all platforms, and that's my website. But if you want to find that video, if you just type in my name and Uri Geller, it'll be the first thing that shows up.
Very cool. At Joe Diamond Live. All right, so you've done all these places, you like all these haunted locations. You've been around. You're performing. Mm-hmm. Do you ever get involved in the ghost hunt aspect of that too? Do you?
Sometimes, like for example, at the Dole Mansion, where I'm the artist partner at. So I have a studio there. There's lots of artists there. There's a medium. There's a woman who does Reiki. There's a woman who does painting, some photography. I actually just found out there's some artists who just moved in who design oracle decks. So I want to meet them and hang out with them. And around Halloween, I'm actually doing this on April 1st as well. I'll usually do a big show in the ballroom area and then do a 13-person flashlight tour of the mansion as well.
Okay.
Because there's like second and third floors, and we'll talk about some of the history of the place, some things that happened to me, some things that have happened to other people. I also hosted a ghost tour in the town of Woodstock, Illinois. It's where Orson Welles grew up. It's also where they filmed the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray.
Oh, cool.
That little town square area that's my own town. That's where I was born and where I grew up.
That's cool.
So I've done a lot of that, and I usually tend to, but my rules for those situations is I always try to make sure I get all my facts straight. And if I'm going to tell a story in it, it needs to be first person. Like as soon as it becomes, a friend of mine, I don't use it. It's just, there's too much friend of a friend said something. And not that I think a ghost tour is like the be all end all of science and such, it's the tour. It's meant to be entertaining and fun, but at the same time, I feel like, there's no need to make stuff up. And also it's an editing technique because when I started like collecting stories of all these places, well, and that's the thing too, at this arts park, I'm the mind reader and people think, hear that the building is haunted. If they have something happen to me, they come to me and tell me about it. So it's a way to just kind of keep stories, for those situations focused. I have caught some interesting things on camera there, some shadow people. Other photographers have captured a lot of things there, but also it's just kind of, it's less, like straight up hauntings, like things move and lights flicker, and more like beautiful coincidences happen there. It's kind of like a hub that kind of brings people together. A perfect example is one year for Halloween, they had an artist whose company was called Day of the Dollies, and she refurbished old dolls to make them look even creepier. And there was one piece, and there was one of her pieces that spoke to me. I was like, oh, I need to own this. And she came with a name. This little doll came with a name. Her name was Flora. I bought her on the spot. I come home, and it was October, so my wife and I watch, I usually watch like 30 horror movies or 31 in October. She watches a couple of them with me. She picked the movie. She picked The Innocents, which is based on The Turning of the Screw, which is also what The Haunting of Bly Manor is based on.
Okay.
And the name of the little girl in that is called Flora. So that's kind of a strange coincidence. So Lindsay goes to bed. I pick another movie at random. I have all the Universal monster movies together, The Wolfman, Dracula, and they're all 70 minutes. So I pick one at random because they're all 70 minutes. And I close my eyes and reach into the stack, and I pick the Invisible Man. And the name of the love interest in that movie is Flora. And that's not a common name.
No.
For 3 Floras to show up all in the same day. And there were dozens of dolls. Any one of them could have spoke to me, but that's the one that spoke to me. When people try to say, oh, that's just a coincidence, I try to say that's more mysterious. The idea that no one or nothing pulled the strings to make that happen is actually more disturbing if you really think about it. So lots of things like that happen. My good friend Lauren, her and I met in the last year. She moved in as an artist partner there. Turns out her and I had a lot of mutual friends and similar backgrounds. And we were just like, oh my gosh, we would have, even though we're into this, we wouldn't have met unless, except it for this place. If it wasn't for this place, we would have kept passing like ships in the night, even though we, had a lot of mutual friends and kind of flew in the same circles and such. So I've definitely had my fair share of things actually, happening to me. There was one night I was at the Maxwell Mansion in Lake Geneva, which is now a boutique hotel, and they have events, they have bars, a speakeasy, and I perform there once a month. Well, during the initial lockdown in 2020, the old owner let my wife and I stay there for a couple days. We were supposed to go on a trip, and it didn't happen. So he was like, oh, come and stay in the Grand Suite. No one's here. So we were the only ones in the building for like 2 nights.
Okay, that's nice.
And it was very nice. It was lovely. And my wife's an early bird. I'm a night owl, so I stayed up reading in the ballroom. And the ballroom is right over the speakeasy. And down in the speakeasy is where the original owner, Dr. Maxwell, did a lot of, we'll just say, unnecessary experiments and surgeries back in the 1850s and 60s and 70s. So I can't imagine they all went well. I think that's my theory for why the Maxwell Mansion is haunted. So I finish my book, I close it, I stand up and look in the mirror over the fireplace, and I see someone standing over my left shoulder. I turn around to see who it is, and no one is there. And I turn back and look in the mirror, and no one is there. Now, full disclosure, I had 5 old fashions. So it could have been another kind of spirit, is what I'm saying. It was the spirits or the spirits.
I was either being demonically attacked, or I was feeling pretty buzzed. One of the two was happening.
Exactly. So full disclosure on that. And yeah, I've done a lot of tours. I've done some experiments and some investigations. I don't really consider myself an expert investigator. I see myself more as just a seeker. It's something I'm interested in. I mean, one of the beautiful things about the paranormal is like there really aren't any experts
Right.
in many ways, because we still don't know exactly what it is. We all have our own theories, and I don't know if one theory or feeling is different than the other. That said, I think there's a lot of people who are definitely more knowledgeable about the history and the techniques and those kinds of things, for sure, absolutely. When it comes to like the history and so forth.
But you're right.
It's
100%. It's a whole culture based on theory.
Yes, and how beautiful is that? How beautiful! It's based on theory. It's also based on mystery. It's also based on like, hey, we don't have all the answers yet, and we're still looking. And sure, maybe in 100 years, like I always use radio as the example. Like if you told someone 150 years ago, hey, I speak into this box, it transmits my voice through the ether, and it goes into another box in real time, hundreds of miles away. That sounds like spiritualism. That sounds like, that sounds paranormal.
Burn them.
Who knows what yeah, exactly. And who knows in 100 years, like people are like, oh, people are going to laugh at you in 100. It's like, so? Like we're figuring out whatever it is now. I hope that in 100 years, people are like, they thought it was ghosts. It's really quantum mechanics. And they were just getting glimpses of the past, present, and future all at once when the different axes came together. I hope that's what happens.
Right.
I would be thrilled to be like, oh my gosh, that is great. We were so off. How wonderful is that? Again, like my mentor who passed away a few years ago, Eugene Berger, he often said that, people like to make everything a problem. Everyone thinks it's a problem to be solved. But the world isn't filled with problems. It's filled with mysteries. And mysteries aren't meant to be solved. Mysteries are meant to be experienced. If we woke up tomorrow and every problem was solved, breathe the air, drink the water, people saying please and thank you, all of it was solved, there would still be an incredible amount of mystery.
That's beautiful.
And even Einstein himself said, mystery, imagination is more important than knowledge. The most important thing you can experience is the mysterious. Without mystery, life is as good as a snuffed out candle. And he was no dummy. And he was willing to just say, it's a mystery. I don't know.
I like that a lot. I might steal that. So thank you.
Feel free. Feel free. Absolutely. Well, and again, I see that as part of my work. Like a lot of people, like, yes, I do want to be clear with people. Like, yes, I am an artist. I'm doing, I like to perform. I'm using a lot of blends of, psychology and intuition, but there's still things that happen in my shows that I can't always explain.
I was going to ask you that too.
Yeah, well, see, I picked up on that. There you go, done. So, but no, like when I'm choosing someone from the audience, that's a purely intuitive. Even if it's going to be something like just for example, the human blockhead I was talking about before, where I'm hammering a nail in my. 9 times out of 10, I pick someone feminine for that routine. I've done it with people who identify as male and female over the years, but I want a little bit of that caring nature. I don't want it to be a challenge on stage. And when I'm a short, stocky, Midwestern looking dude. So I want contrast for that. If I get a guy on stage, there can be a little bit of a challenge with some of that stuff, especially if I'm holding a hammer and a nail, so I want to take that out. I want there to be a little bit of, empathy for me. Because when people are reacting when I'm hammering the nail in my nose, they're not cringing because I'm doing it to me. They're cringing because they feel like it's being done to them.
Right.
And that right there proves telepathy. If telepathy didn't exist, no one would cringe while watching a horror movie or when I'm hammering a nail in my nose. Like right there. That's proof of it right there. I think telepathy and mind reading has just as much to do with empathy as it has to do with our minds. That aside, when I'm choosing that person, that's a form of intuition. I have to make a calculated, and there's not like a reason for it. There's not like a scientific checklist. I just will look at the person and go, blonde won't work, but brunette will be perfect. Like for some reason. And sometimes it's a big biker woman with a face tattoo. And sometimes it's a girl who looks like she went to Christian college. It's just, that's the person for this tonight. It's not all. And again, like being able to find the person who laughs, is a little squeamish, but still likes me and I can still be playful with. Like that's a certain level of intuition for that. That said, too, actually going back to the pin codes, this is a perfect example. At one of my Halloween shows, someone was standing, they were thinking of a pin code, and I was like, I don't remember what the numbers were, but I was like, I think, because she was standing up, I was like, change one of the digits. That way, when I say it in a moment, it's fine. You don't have to change your passcode. That's another thing I'll do. So I told her to change one of the digits, and I throw out the digits. I think it's 543, and you change the last digit to 7. Is that right? And she was like, no. I was like, am I close? She was like, no. I was like, well, thank you for your honesty. I'm sorry it didn't work. Give her a round of applause for being honest. Thanks for keeping me on my toes. And I continued on. After the show, the guy that I was sitting right behind her came up to me and said, hey, I didn't want to disrupt the show, so I didn't want to say anything, but you got my code and the digit I changed. I was sitting right behind her. And I was like, you could have interrupted me for that.
Yeah, for that
that
one,
would have been fine. Yeah, that you could have interrupted me. So yes, and that's part of the fun of it too. Is like it's different every time. I have a structure for all my shows, but I don't know how people are going to react, what they're going to think of, what they're going to do. I've had people think of embarrassing moments. I've had people think of their first crush. I've had people laugh hysterically. I've even had people choke up and get emotional because they were thinking of a raw moment from their past. And I asked, are you okay? Do we need to keep? Do you want to stop? And, I always get their consent to keep going and so forth. But that's kind of, again, the beautiful thing about this is that, yes, I've got a plan. Yes, I know how I want to go with stuff, but I'm also very open to whatever happens in that moment. That's kind of where I'm taking a little bit. I did improv growing up in high school too. So That's kind of where some of the improv comes in as well. But again, if I wasn't just open to people's thoughts and where they're going with it and just said, no, I have to stick to my set skills and techniques and everything, I wouldn't have hacked the Pentagon. I wouldn't have had that moment with that person behind the other one.
Now, I think,
and again, go ahead.
I think as well, it takes that other level onto your show itself because it gives you, like, when they're having real emotions there, I mean, that's real, that's raw, that's vulnerability.
Yeah.
You guys are
exactly.
having a moment, which makes the entire experience better.
Yep. I had a woman cry once. All I did was guess the time she was thinking of. That was it, just a random time. It wasn't like the name of a loved one. It was just the time. And she kind of yelped. She kind of got teared up and hugged me, and it was beautiful. And we actually got it on camera. It's on one of my YouTube videos. I used to end my demo video with it because it's like that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Those moments of genuinely connecting with people on stage. And again, like I don't even care if I'm right as long as it's again, do I wish you would have said it during the show? Yes, of course. But like to me, I have even if he hadn't said that, I have no problem with being wrong with that. I mean, I want to be right. I shoot for being right. But if I'm not, then that's okay too. As long as I genuinely do my best and give it a shot, and I'm honest with people. And sometimes too, even when I've just done something more traditional, like a tarot card reading or something like that, sometimes I just have to say, I'm not getting anything right now, and I'd rather be honest than just make something up and you being disappointed.
Now, I do want to ask this because you've talked about tarot before. Would you say that not only are you a mentalist, but you are a psychic as well, medium, or is that kind of all, or is the tarot kind of a trick in itself?
No, the tarot's not a trick. It is a part of my lifestyle. The opening line in my show is, some call me a mind reader, some call me a mentalist or mystic. I am not a medium. Mm-hmm. I'm a large. and I pat my belly. So, and that does a couple of things. It gets people, to see I don't take myself too seriously and we're going to have fun. But also, I don't talk with deceased loved ones. I mean, if I did, I probably wouldn't do that at a theater show or a corporate event. I don't think that's the right context for that.
Gotcha.
I definitely, I even have people think of names of people living. I say, make it a living person, because I don't want them to just go through all that emotion, again, at the company Christmas party. If it happens on its own, fine. But I feel like if I did that, if I specifically asked for that, that would be too emotionally manipulative, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I tend to stay away from that type of stuff. However, again, I've definitely had my fair share of paranormal experiences when it comes to ghosts. When it comes to being psychic, I feel we're all psychic. I feel we all have intuition. It's a muscle we all have. Sure, we all have the same muscles, but we don't all look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's kind of the way I feel about it. The way, this isn't a perfect analogy, but I think it gets the point across, and also works because my last name is Diamond. Let's say my intuition, my mind reading, that is a diamond. Let's say it's a diamond the size of a baseball. Trust me, that diamond was buried under a lot of earth, a lot of coal, a lot of chaff, and it took a long time for me to dust it off and polish it and make it shine as brightly as possible. However, no matter how much I shine it, no matter how much I chip away at it, that diamond isn't going to become a ruby. And I shouldn't look at someone else who has a ruby and be upset that mine's a diamond, or try to change my diamond. Someone else's gift may be talking to the dead. I mentioned my friend Lauren, who is a medium, and she does have those things come through to her. And I don't, we talk about, the similarities and differences in what we do, but I don't look at that and go, oh, I wish I had that. I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
I do think there are some skills that, again, we just all naturally have. I think psychometry, we've all of us have picked up an object and at an antique mall and gone, oh, something happened with this.
Yeah.
Or even just when it comes to, for collectors, oh, well, is it an original? Why should it matter unless you feel something when you hold on to that original moment, or that original item, in the moment. So I think that is something that we do all have. It just depends on, to what degree. And also, I read a lot, I think the only difference, I think I'm just as psychic as everyone else. I've just, read different books and studied different things.
What about your wife? I know you said she will sit down and watch a couple scary movies with you, but not all 31 days.
So we are perfectly matched polar opposites in a lot of ways. We agree on a lot of philosophical and spiritual and religious things. That said, when we watch a movie, she wants to read all the spoilers online.
Oh.
She wants to know the spoilers and know it all. She read spoilers for what show did we watch? I think it was something like Midnight Mass or something, and I was like, no, don't tell me. So she's good. She's gotten a lot better at not spoiling it for other people. And sometimes she does want to go into something cold. We both love murder mysteries, for example. Everyone always asks if I can read her mind, and the line she says if she's there, she goes, not if he knows what's good for him. Just fun. But honestly, she's one of the clearest and best communicators I've ever met. I've never had to read her mind. I mean, we definitely have moments where it's one of us will be having a rough day, especially during the pandemic. There were days we were both just working on our computers, and one of us would be like, hey, you okay? Yeah, I mean, I'll get through it. You want to talk about it now or wait till later? I'll wait till later. Like that, for sure. But as long as she knows it, sometimes she'll be like, well, I don't know what I want to watch. So I have to give her 3 movies to choose and be like, okay, what don't you want to watch? and then she'll pick the one she doesn't want to watch, and whichever's left, that's what we'll watch. So we have to do a little bit of that.
It's always the movie you want to watch the most, right?
Sometimes she'll usually say pick 3 movies and give me a choice of 3, and usually I have one I want, and if it's one I want, I'll purposely pick ones I know she'll say no to. But that doesn't always work, and I don't have to always do that. I don't think that's being psychic. I think that's just being married at this point. But also, again, there's never a moment where it's like, well, you're psychic, you should just know. Like that's the other thing too, is when I talk about opposites. I'm the emotional one, and she's the total like hard-nosed, like factual, intellectual one. She's a history science double major. Okay. Like she is one of the smartest people, and she works in corporate financing, so she is one of the smartest people I know. Like she does it in a day what would take me months to figure out and see the matrix on and do like numbers and math and moving stuff around. Like no, that is not my world.
That hurts the creative brain.
Yeah. So it's a good mix. It's a good balance. And again, like a lot of this, as much of, I live and breathe this. There are elements with my work where it's just like, yeah, at home, I'm just watching TV. I'm not reading her. I'm not, figuring out stuff. We're just being human beings. Actually, the big thing she helps with is a lot of like show structure. Like she basically directed a show I do called Mystic, which seats 13 people in that haunted mansion, the Dole Mansion in Crystal Lake, Illinois.
Uh-huh.
And so it was 13 people, and I talked about all these different mystics from throughout history, and she helped me pick the mystic. She helped me write some jokes for some moments and everything, and
that's cool.
How to find an order for stuff. So, and again, that's the more analytical side of what I do. So she's helped out a lot with that. And there are times where I'm like, hey, am I overthinking this? And she's like, yeah, just do this. And that's usually the best way to go about it.
Now, right when we started the show, we kind of discussed that you were going to do a kind of a trick with cards that everybody listening would be able to do.
Yes.
Let's do it.
So is now the time? We ready to wrap up and do this?
Now is the time to blow some minds out there.
All right, perfect. Now, you don't need a full deck. I'm talking to you and the listeners right now. You just need 10 cards. I've got a deck here with me. Let me count them off here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, they don't have to be playing cards. They can be tarot cards. They can be Uno cards. They can be oracle cards. They can be baseball cards. They can even be business cards or index cards with nothing written on them. If that's the case, you are going to need a pen nearby. But you did tell me before we went live, Jordan, that you have some playing cards with you. Let me know when you've counted off your 10 cards and start mixing them up. And I will do the same. And while you're counting those off, this is actually, we're going to use these 10 cards for a ritual that was inspired by the Magician card in the Rider-Waite Smith Tarot deck. Now, I assume most of your listeners out there are familiar with that image, but for those of you who aren't, it's a beautiful card with a yellow background. There's the 4 elements on the table, which are also the 4 tarot suits, and the Magician has one hand pointed up over their head and one hand pointed towards the earth. And we're going to use the imagery and the meaning of that card, plus the 10 cards in your listeners' hands, to awaken the mystic, the magician in all of them. Because deep down, we all wish we were like the figure in that card. We all wish we were magicians. We all wish we had more power and control over the world around us. So we're going to use these 10 cards for that ritual. Let me know when you've got 10 cards, Jordan.
I have 10 cards, sir. Am I supposed to look at them? Or tell you what type of cards? You don't have to look at them right now. For right now, just mix them. Mix them face down in your hand. Now, at this point, is there anything I could know about the cards in your listeners' hands right now? You don't even know what kind of cards they could be shuffling Pokemon cards right now.
Exactly. Yeah, they could be Pokemon cards, anything. Believe it or not, I do know one thing. I know everyone has 10 of them. Of course, duh. So when you're done shuffling, I don't even want to know that. When you're done shuffling right now, get rid of some cards. Now, don't get rid of just one. Get rid of at least two. Make it a little harder. But at the same time, don't get rid of too many. You'll need at least like 4 cards in your hand to work with. Otherwise, this just isn't going to be impressive. So get rid of them. And you don't even have to tell me how many you're getting rid of right now, Jordan. And all the listeners, follow along with Jordan and I and get rid of a couple cards.
Okay.
Let me know when you've gotten rid of a couple cards.
I got rid of a couple cards.
Okay, perfect. Take your whole pile and hold it face down in your hand as if you're going to deal them in a moment. Okay, ready?
Yes.
Before you do that, pick up the whole pile and look at the bottom card and remember it. Everyone listening, follow along with us too, okay? Everyone listening, look at the bottom card and remember it. Seriously, don't forget it. If you forget at the end of this, it'll be stupid. So if you've got a phone, you can take a photo of it. If you've got pen and paper, you can write down the name. If you've got blank index cards or business cards, take a pen and just draw an X on that bottom card. Once you've done that, once you've committed that card to memory, hold the cards face down in your hand again with that card on the bottom. Jordan, let me know when you are done.
I am done, sir.
Okay, perfect. I said this was about the magician card, so we're going to cast a spell. We're going to spell the word magician. So just take the top card and move it to the bottom. And when you've done that, say M.
M.
That's the first letter of the word magician. Take the new top card and move it to the bottom and say A.
A. Now, you're not going to make me do this on my own where I have to spell magician from memory, right?
We'll do it all together.
Okay,
Everyone do it together. Do it with Jordan and I. Move the new top card to the bottom and all together say G.
G.
And now move the new top card to the bottom and say I.
I.
Move the new top card to the bottom and say C.
C.
Move the new top card to the bottom and say I.
I.
Top card to the bottom, say N.
N.
Or say A, sorry.
A.
Sorry, that was A. We have to do it once more. Yes, A. And then once more, move it to the bottom and say N.
N.
Okay, so everyone has spelled the word magician. You, me, and again, everyone has different cards, so everyone's cards are now in a different order. Now, I mentioned before how the magician card has one hand pointed towards the heaven, one hand pointed towards the earth. That's because they're saying as above, so below. The artist actually got that from the Lord's Prayer, on earth as it is in heaven. So take the top card and deal it to the table in front of you face down and say as above.
As above.
Now take the new top card and move it to the bottom of the pile in your hand and say so below.
So below.
Very good. Do it again. Take the top card, deal it to the table in front of you, and say as above.
As above.
Take the new top card and move it to the bottom of the pile in your hand and say so below.
So below.
And you're just going to keep doing that until you're down to one card. As above, dealing a card to the table. So below, putting a card on the bottom of the packet in your hand. Just keep on going until you're down to one card. Don't look at any of the cards. It's bad luck. Just keep going. As above, so below. As above, and you'll end on one card in your hand. Hold that card between your hands. Don't look at it. Let me know when you've got just one card between your hands, Jordan.
Okay, I'm going to give an extra second just in case anybody out there still, I mean, they can have a bigger
absolutely.
stack than most, right? So, all
yeah,
right.
Exactly. Everyone should be done by now.
Okay.
We're now going to say the most profound magic words we'll probably ever say. It's not abracadabra. Those are good ones. Those are actually a combination of Hebrew and Aramaic, and it means I create as I speak. Those words are about 5,000 years old. This one is even older and harder to pronounce in the original Aramaic, so we're just going to do the English translation. I learned these magic words from my dearly departed mentor, Eugene Berger. Repeat after me. I give myself permission to be powerful.
I give myself permission to be powerful.
It's weird to say that after the last 2 years, isn't it?
Right?
That means it's working. Take a look. You should be holding your card in your hand.
Boom!
And all the listeners should also be holding their cards in their hand. Now, if this worked for you, this means you have to share it with a friend who could also use more power and control in their lives. If it didn't work for you, it's a podcast. Re-listen to it, do it again. It'll work the second time much better, I promise. Also, finally, keep that card as a reminder of the impossible you just created in your hand.
And for those of you that it did work out for, like I said, send us a picture. Get on our Facebook page, Fireside Paranormal Hub. Put a picture of your
take a picture
card.
of it. Share it with us. I'd love to see it.
That'll be fun. Oh, Joe Diamond.
And no joke, not even just with the cards. I mean, just being able, just the ritual of saying those words for me have been so important in my life. And that kind of personally encompasses what I love about incorporating, the ritual and the history and the actual meaning in my life and the actual, real magic in my life, and incorporating it into something, fun that everyone can do with cards is what I love about this art form and what I love doing as a performer, as an artist.
That's good stuff. Touching lives, changing people's mindsets. You're a man
Thank
of
you.
mystery.
Yep, absolutely.
Joe, tell us where we can find you. Tell us where folks can find you, like online. Where's your main source of connection there? Is it Instagram? Is it Facebook? Is it YouTube?
Yeah, I am. My website is joediamondlive.com, and all my social media is at Joe Diamond Live, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I'm not on TikTok. I've got a Twitter, but I haven't used it in forever. I'm mostly active on Instagram. My email is joe@joediamondlive.com. If you shoot me an email or a Facebook message. Actually, no, Facebook messages are weird with Facebook messaging and all that, so I don't always get those. The best way to get a hold of me if someone does want to reach out is through my website, joediamondlive.com, or shoot me a message at Joe Diamond Live on Instagram. Those are the best ways to get a hold of me.
Very cool. Joe Diamond, America's greatest mind reader. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, you have a good night, sir.
Good night.
Bye-bye. And with that, the fire is out. I want to thank you so much, Joe Diamond, for being on the show. I want to thank you guys for listening each week. It is not lost on me how many podcasts there are out there, and the fact that you've added me to your playlist means a lot to me, and I appreciate every single one of you. If I haven't had the chance to meet and talk with you yet, definitely, reach out to me on one of our socials, whether it be our Facebook group, Fireside Paranormal Hub, or Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We've been having a lot of good conversations on all of those platforms, and I've really gotten to enjoy talking to so many of you and finding out what you're about and what you've experienced and just your thoughts on all this. So I do want to encourage you guys to reach out on your socials and, give me an ad. Check out our website, firesideparanormal.com. We have a lot of cool merchandise on there. Those shows are on there. And if you listen to the show on Apple or Spotify, make sure you give us a rate and a review. It does help me out a lot. So thank you in advance. And I do want to give a quick plug while we have a second left. American Paranormal Magazine, their upcoming issue has some friends of the show on there, Jose and Angel with Fog. I believe they are highlighted in that issue, so definitely check it out. If you haven't checked out the magazine yet, it is really, really cool. All right, so that is all the time we have for this week. So until next week, everybody, don't be afraid, only believe.